Despite their many differences, there are also a number of interesting similarities between Plato and Nietzsche's philosophical views. Both philosophers were deeply concerned with the nature of truth and knowledge and with the ways in which we can access these fundamental concepts. They also both grappled with the idea of the self and the human condition, and their ideas about these concepts have had a significant influence on our understanding of these issues. Plato's concept of the forms, also known as the ideas, is a central element of his philosophy. According to Plato, the forms are eternal, unchanging, and perfect archetypes of all things, and they are the ultimate source of truth and knowledge. The forms are not physical entities that can be perceived through the senses, rather, they are abstract and can only be accessed through reason and contemplation. In contrast, knowledge of the forms is certain and eternal. This idea led him to place a strong emphasis on the role of reason in understanding the world and seeking truth. This concept also influences Plato's views on reality. He argued that the material world we experience is an imperfect imitation of the world of the forms, and that the true nature of things can only be understood by considering their ideal forms. He believed that the ultimate goal of the human soul was to transcend the material world and access the world of the forms, where it could gain true knowledge and understanding. Nietzsche was a 19th-century philosopher known for his criticism of traditional morality and his ideas about the will to power. Nietzsche rejected the idea of objective truth and argued that all values and meaning are created by humans. He believed that the human will to power was the driving force behind all human action and that the goal of life was to embrace and express this will to power. Nietzsche was also critical of Christianity and the values it promotes, arguing that they were a product of weakness and a denial of our true nature as human beings. Nietzsche's views on truth, knowledge, and reality were quite different from those of Plato. Whereas Plato believed in the existence of eternal and objective truth that could be accessed through reason and contemplation, Nietzsche rejected the idea of objective truth altogether. According to Nietzsche, there is no such thing as objective reality, rather, reality is shaped by our perceptions, interpretations, and values. He believed that the human mind is constantly active and that we are constantly constructing our own reality through the process of interpretation. He believed that the human mind is constantly constructing and interpreting the world, and that there is no such thing as an objective or unbiased perspective. He argued that the pursuit of truth and knowledge is ultimately motivated by the will to power and that our values and beliefs are shaped by our desire to exert power over others and over the world. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power is a central element of his philosophy. According to Nietzsche, the will is the fundamental driving force behind all human action and the ultimate goal of life. Nietzsche believed that will is the source of all values and meaning, and that it is through the expression of the will that we create our own reality and give meaning to our lives. He argued that the pursuit of truth and knowledge is ultimately motivated by the will, and that our values and beliefs are shaped by our desire to exert power over others and over the world. Finally, the concept of the will to power influences Nietzsche's views on the human condition and the ultimate goal of life. He argued that the ultimate goal of life is to embrace and express the will to power, and that this involves the creation and shaping of the world according to one's own values and desires. Nietzsche's views on truth, knowledge, and reality differed significantly from those of Plato. While Plato believed in the existence of eternal and objective truth that could be accessed through reason and contemplation, Nietzsche rejected the idea of objective truth and argued that all truth is subjective and created by humans. He also rejected the idea of objective knowledge and argued that all knowledge is perspectival and subjective. These views were closely connected to Nietzsche's concept of the will to power, which he believed was the driving force behind all human action. Plato and Nietzsche had different ideas about the nature of the self and the human condition. Plato believed that the self was made up of two parts, the body and the soul. He argued that the body was a temporary vessel for the soul, which was immortal. Plato believed that the soul was the source of our thoughts, emotions, and desires, and that it was immortal and would continue to exist after the death of the body. Plato also believed that the ultimate goal of the human soul was to transcend the material world and access the world of the forms, where it could gain true knowledge and understanding. He argued that the pursuit of wisdom and contemplation was the most fulfilling and meaningful way to live, and that it was the key to achieving happiness and fulfillment in life. Nietzsche, on the other hand, rejected the idea of an immortal soul and argued that the self was simply a product of the body. He believed that the body was the source of all thoughts, emotions, and desires, and that it was the driving force behind all human action. Nietzsche also had a different view of the human condition than Plato. While Plato saw the human condition as one of constant striving towards a higher, more perfect realm, Nietzsche saw it as one of constant struggle and conflict. He believed that life was a struggle for power and that the strong and the capable were those who were able to exert their will over others and over the world. Nietzsche argued that the weak and the powerless were those who were unable to assert their will and that they were ultimately responsible for their own suffering. In summary, Plato and Nietzsche had different ideas about the nature of the self and the human condition. Plato believed in the existence of an immortal soul and saw the ultimate goal of life as the pursuit of wisdom and contemplation, while Nietzsche rejected the idea of an immortal soul and saw the goal of life as the expression of the will to power. Plato saw the human condition as one of constant striving towards a higher, more perfect realm, while Nietzsche saw it as one of constant struggle and conflict. There are several key points of comparison between the philosophical views of Plato and Nietzsche. In summary, Plato and Nietzsche had very different philosophical views on a wide range of topics, including truth, knowledge, reality, the self, the human condition, and the nature of the world. While Plato placed a strong emphasis on the role of reason and contemplation in understanding the world and seeking truth, Nietzsche rejected the idea of objective truth and argued that all values and meaning are created by humans. Despite these differences, both philosophers had a significant influence on the development of Western philosophy and continue to be studied and debated by philosophers today.